Coming up, we get some key remarks from one Sean Marks as well as Cam Johnson. What's the future look like for that crafty veteran wing in Brooklyn or maybe somewhere else? We dive in next.
You are Locked On Nets, your daily Brooklyn Nets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, my friends, it is the Locked On Nets podcast right here on Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team, the Brooklyn Nets. It's every single day. He's Doug Norrie. I'm Adam Marmorick. We thank you as always for making us your first listen of the day. We're 100% free on all those great platforms. And oh boy, as the play-in tournament gets underway and some of the playoff matchups are set up, we're talking about not really basketball because the Nets aren't playing in the postseason, but we do have Sean Marks giving some pretty clear comments when it comes to one Cam Johnson and maybe what the fans should brace for if they're hoping to see veterans get moved this offseason.
I don't know why people think that these guys are getting traded. This is not how he's operated. I'm always confused about why people get surprised. Like the people that have thrown out the ideas like draft night trade with Cam Johnson and they move up the board. I'm like, what thing in the past has ever signaled that this is something they would do? I guess I just don't really understand it. And I get, someone might say, well, they traded Durant. Okay. They traded Kyrie. They traded Mikal Bridges. That was under like heavy duress around Katie and Kyrie. It was like, essentially ultimatum time. And then Mikal was this situation where I actually don't even think they wanted to trade him, but the Knicks just came in with such a crazy offer because he was boys with all those guys that it was like, I'd be absolutely crazy to say no to this. And other than those three trades, like what have we seen from him? What have they signaled through the years that this would be the kind of trade they would make? It's frankly gone the opposite way based on some of the comments that he's made. So I'm always just a little surprised that people think that this is really part of something that is like his standard operating procedure. This is just not a guy who they like who they like, and they like to keep these guys and that's just kind of how it is. I don't know. I'm just not surprised by some of this stuff.
Well, you can say that on the one hand, but they got rid of Dennis Schroeder, and that was a crafty veteran, and it took them almost
totally different
same exact week to get another veteran point guard that they liked back in the building. So, there's a lot of ins and outs to this kind of stuff. No, I mean, listen, I think from a fan's perspective, you of course want to go down these roads because really, especially in this offseason upcoming for the Brooklyn Nets, it's about, well, now you have all these draft picks. And I think if there's anything to point to why might or why should the Nets consider this, it's because this is the first time in the Sean Marks era that they're going to have all this draft capital and the ability to do things that maybe they would have done at some point along the way had they had the opportunities. That being the case, let's go right to the horse's mouth. I think that's where the phrase goes. When asked about Sean Marks, it is Cam Johnson's leadership and potential trades. There was no shortage of teams calling on him, said Sean Marks, but I can't think of a pathway that Cam doesn't fit in. He's a high character guy who you're going to see as consistency from every day. We're in zero hurry to move on from players like that. I think the next step for Cam is to take on more of a leadership role. We just talked about it this morning with him. He carries a big voice. He's well respected with his teammates. They love him, and he's about the right stuff. If you want to look at it, what is a net? That's what you want. So just to round out from the top of the podcast episode, which started about 3 minutes and 40 seconds ago, the Brooklyn Nets aren't going to move Cam Johnson. Now, again, things happen. Narratives change, and you talk glowingly about the guys. But I will say, we'll get into Cam Johnson's comments as well, that this is a pretty strong statement and backing of Cam Johnson from Sean Marks publicly at a time when, you don't need to say anything other than he's a great veteran player. We're happy to have him on the roster. He went the extra couple of miles here to really heap a ton of praise on Cam Johnson.
Yeah, and it's kind of emulating or just saying the same things that we said that they hadn't said during the year, which was Cam Johnson checks a lot of boxes for this organization right now.
Yep.
Now, okay, real quick. This is very easy to say. Everyone knows that this stuff can change in a heartbeat. So you should always just say stuff like this, which is
never hurts to say the right thing.
He's never come up to the podium and being like, we'll see, he's not going to do something like that. Right. So these things are relatively easy to say on just a high level. I do agree that he goes the extra mile with how he phrases it here, implying that they see him as the thing I was going to say before, which is they see him as kind of fitting a couple different needs. If you need a veteran to sort of be a good stabilizing force in the clubhouse and the locker room around a group of what are going to become like essentially rookies all over the place, it's good to have a guy like this around who's uber professional, a really good player, and, you know, is a little bit older coming into the league, and it could be like a guiding light for some of these young guys. So check there. If you think that you want to pivot to a superstar at some point and somehow you're able to keep him on the roster, he fits in with kind of anybody you bring in. So check there as well. The contract's not overwhelming, right? Like they signed him to, I mean, he way outplayed the contract this year at $22.5 million, down to $20.5 million. That's just a straight up bargain at this point. And back to 22.5, back to 22.5 next year. So, you know, the contract's just totally fine, which is why people want to trade him, by the way, because the contract looks like it's very tradable at this point. But I just don't see them rushing to do it. And, you know, like it kind of leaves your optionality open for all cases, right? Super young, good, check there. They go superstar route, check there, good. It's all fine. It's not costing us a lot. They got to spend the money anyway, right? Because they're just going to have no money on the books. So I'm just not surprised to hear him say this. And he really was just saying the stuff that we kind of assumed all year long, which is how they thought about it. Teams called for him. The price was very high. They probably got real offers, and they had to be blown away, a la Kevin Durant, a la Mikal Bridges. Blow me away, and I'll get the job done. But fair market value isn't getting it done because he's worth more to us than he is to you. And that's just like, that's what's happened with some of these guys this time. I think he's worth more to the Nets in their eyes than other teams who are just trading for a basketball player are, because for them, he's slightly more than a basketball player. I think that's kind of what Sean Marks is saying.
I saw a thing, and I don't know if it was sourced or not, but Sean Marks at the trade deadline, when people are calling about Cam Johnson, he said, call me a sailboat and blow me away. And nobody did. And that's how Cam Johnson remained a Brooklyn Net. I think that's pretty impressive. Anyone else can get in the comments and let me know how good that was. Also, I'll shout out by the end of the episode, someone reminded me it was BCT. It was Backwards Cap Tuesday. I wasn't even using the right words when I was trying to come up with that.
That was a mess. That was
I had 8 in there.
You were so far. You were so far off course that I couldn't even dissect it in the moment. Like, you got so many letters of the thing wrong. Go back and listen to the podcast yesterday where Adam tries to do backwards hat day or whatever, and then he tries to give the anagram for it. It got the B right, and that was just about it.
Start out strong, and you get a little bit lost on the path to the end. The bottom line is I will get that individual's name out to this one. And when we come back on the side, there's a couple of things. So there's more comments on the CBA and how it impacts pursuits for Sean Marks, talking about other potential moves that they may want to make. And then Cam Johnson also spoke about what he wants and how he feels about it. One of those key things there mentioned that they sat down and talked with him this morning, which would have been yesterday, as far as what the future looks like for him. So clearly Cam Johnson wants to be valued by an organization, if you're going to be a veteran, surrounded potentially by a lot of young talent. We'll get into that here in just one moment.
All right, I'll tell you about our friends over at Open Phone. If you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. Think about it. When was the last time you had a service emergency? If the person didn't answer, did you wait? Probably not. That's why you need Open Phone. Open Phone is the #1 business phone system designed to streamline, scale your customer communications, all through an app on your phone or computer. Look, you don't need to carry 2 phones anymore with Open Phone. You manage business calls, text from one app. Maybe you're at your desk, maybe you're on the go. You get the shared inbox. Your team can jump in on any conversation without missing a beat. Got the AI call transcripts and summaries. Can save you time and follow-ups and make sure you never lose track of a customer interaction. Open Phone is offering listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. That's openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. If you're switching over from another service, Open Phone will even port your existing numbers over at no charge. Open Phone, no missed calls, no missed customers. We're done with that. Heading over to our friends over at Amazon Fire TV. Did you know that Amazon Fire TV is also on Xbox? You can turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick. 4K devices, now no console required. Just grab your pair of controllers. Subscribers sign into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included. You're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles. EA Sports College Football 25, Call of Duty, Black Ops 6, Avowed. As easily as you stream your favorite shows. It's gaming made simple. And it's all on your Fire TV. Head on over to Amazon.com/Fire TV. Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K second generation, Fire TV 4K Max first and second generation, and Fire TV Cubed third generation. Go to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On.
All right, as we continue today's Locked On Nets episode, talking about the offseason, Sean Marks' remarks on one Cam Johnson and what the future looks like. We like to pat ourselves on the back when we feel like we've been right about things, and we'll go ahead and mention that throughout the year, we did feel like this was the kind of player and the kind of situation that wasn't going to be shocking if he was still here. Dorian Finney-Smith, we thought, yeah, he would be moved. We advocated he should have been moved sooner. Ultimately, they do end up trading him in the Lakers deal. But when it comes to Cam Johnson, for all the reasons you said, it makes sense that he's going to stick around here. You had the comments from Cam when he was talking about what it means now being in Brooklyn, what the expectations are for him as he thinks about this next season going ahead as a veteran on this team.
Yeah, Cam was responding to some of the trade stuff, and he basically said, definitely go to him, Sean Marks, and ask, because I have a vested interest in what we're doing here. I feel like I put a lot of effort into trying to be part of this program, and I take that very seriously. So, again, I don't know what the right things to say are sometimes. I know what the wrong ones are. This isn't it. These are just a little bit of just hedging / he's not going to ask for a trade, right? He's not going to say he wants out. I don't think. If he did, it wouldn't be public. I think that he could probably go, behind closed doors and say, hey, I'd like to make this happen. I'm not sure they'd honor it. I think that the Nets have shown that they're not always willing to do that too. KD went out publicly and said, I want to get traded. And they were like, we'll see. Right. And then they waited. So I don't think that even that, but I think these are relatively easy things to say, but I do think he means it. I think that he took his role very seriously on the team this year. It can't be fun being on a team that even when you win a few more games than you were supposed to, quote unquote, that you still lose double than you won. And
let's brass tacks it too. He came over with Mikal Bridges and that, twins, and they're best buddies, and they're going to go to Brooklyn together, and the future's going to be bright, and they're going to start winning. Oh, sorry. We're going to go ahead and trade Mikal Bridges for a haul of picks across town to the New York Knicks. And you're kind of left here as an older, as I said, came out of college, at an older age. And what does the next step of your career look like? Now, let's pay you a massive contract so you feel fine about it overall. But it's a big shift for Cam Johnson, who when he was in Phoenix, it's this is the sharpshooter and had some injury concerns and finally stepped into a bigger role. Coming over with Mikal to Brooklyn was kind of supposed to be like the 1-2 punch, even if we could critique it and say that's not superstar caliber and expectations. But that was supposed to be the recovery from the Kevin Durant trade. And then that gets very quickly dismantled around you. So if you are going into Sean Marks' office, you're kind of saying, hey, man, the paycheck's great. But also, what does it look like for me? Because if I'm going to end up being trade fodder for the next 6 months to 3 years, it will be a bit of a bummer. Not that Sean Marks and the front office are inclined to acquiesce to it, especially coming from Cam.
Yeah, for sure. And by the way, he kind of underperformed the contract in year one because he was injured a lot. So it wasn't he played well this year, but the year before was not amazing. And again, a lot of injury stuff. He had the hamstring issues. There were other issues here. So it's not really his fault necessarily, but it wasn't year one was this total gangbusters. And then year two was just continuing the graph on up. It was, this year he way outplayed the contract, and last year we were like, whoa, that doesn't look great. Right. So it's one of these things where I think that has to be probably factored into the equation too. And there is just a certain caliber of player, I think, that can go and kind of demand front office stuff and can kind of, shape this, begin to shape how an organization looks and what the tenor of the lot, everything is. And he's good, but he's not that guy, right? He's above average. He's more than a role player in the NBA, but he's not a superstar. And
do you think
unfortunately, that's just the way things go. That's the way things go. He's not you can't, I don't want to say happy because that sounds like I'm just pro management or whatever, but you don't have to be happy with where you are. You can always just go try to get to the places that make you, the best version of yourself. But we do know from the history of the league that you have to be above a certain level to kind of start saying, hey, I want to go here. And that's just not the level he is. I don't think he's that kind of guy either.
And we also have the history of the league with the new CBA and how hey, sometimes the veteran waters look a little bit, more shallow than you thought they were when you're going to hit free agency. Not that he wouldn't be a coveted player on the market, but you've gotten paid. if the organization likes you and you like the organization, and you like Jordy Fernandez and you like the idea of being a veteran leader, you're in a pretty good position. And it's funny too, because the one thing which I think is the two sides of it, I don't know if we never had this conversation to my recollection. Bad last season, underperforming last season based on the contract, really knocks it out of the park this year. And then he gets sat down because of the nature of the season. So he wasn't injury related completely. There were just 10 to 15 games. He was just shut down because of what the agenda was. I wonder how much we'll reflect on going forward if the zero pressure nature of this season also played a factor in him having such a great season. And I'm not trying to take anything away from it because he was awesome. But, like when you roll out the balls and the other team gets on the court, we talked about it all year. How are they taking them seriously or not? Are they really concerned about Cam Johnson and covering him really? Because you're going to lose. You're going to probably end up winning these games anyway, regardless of what Cam Johnson does on a night in, night out basis. I think we will reflect on that as you get into maybe next season where the Nets are still going to lose a lot of games, but they're going to be wanting to win. And as the veteran, he may get looked to in some key spots to actually be the guy that gets them across the line at the end of games. And that's when the spotlight will be a little bit brighter on him.
You know, it's wild. I think I had like a misconception about his season last year because I'm looking back at the numbers and he he was better this year from the field goal percentage standpoint. He shot 39% from three this year. He shot it was off by a decimal point, 39% last year. Free throw shooting, much better this year.
And he settled down a bit at the end of this year too, right? Like the beginning of this season was so good, and it did cool off month over month towards the back end.
He was a 50, 40, 90 guy for a lot of the season, and it cooled off late, and he was a 48, 39, 90, 89 guy. Yeah. So it's like right there in terms of efficiency. I mean, really the big difference this year, he played, what's funny? He played one less game this year than he did last year. I think I've just misremembered this year. I think that last year, I actually think that you're correct, except I'm going to flip it a little differently, just from an outside looking in. The expectations were considerably higher last year because the Nets were supposed to try to make the play in, and Mikal was supposed to be better, and it was all supposed to be
over
good.
Expectation, right?
You're right. And I just did it to myself. I just did it to myself in like sort of transposing my feeling about the season onto his season, because his season last year was really kind of just a volume problem. Yeah, if you played a few less minutes, 4 less minutes a game last year. But like efficiency wise was in the range of what he did this year with just more opportunity, got more shots this year because like they had fewer kind of options. Last year was the Mikal and Cam Thomas dueling banjo show on offense sometimes. Neither their fault. They didn't have any other options. I'm not blaming those guys. It's just like the offense was a mess. And those guys kind of just took turns trying to get shots up. And so there really wasn't availability to do that. So he just gets a little more volume. His number really didn't look too different this year. Again, started less game
and got back on track with his free throw shooting as well. Got
to take more shots on a worse team. Like that's kind of what it was. Like he got to take a few more shots because the players around him were X percentage worse, and that's kind of like what happened. So I take it back a little bit on kind of putting down the season before. I think it was like you said, it was expectation over results, and the expectation swayed what the results seemed like they were. So he's been mostly there. And I take back what I said because that's a good reminder to sort of like go back and think something and be like, because like I had a down year. I'm like, whoa, I'm not. How do I spin this? Like, how do I spin this? It's kind of the same.
How do I make this sound like I knew what I thought I knew about this when I look at?
Well, there's no way. There's no way. I have to look at it and be like, I think I was just wrong. Like maybe it didn't pass the eye test. But remember, the expectation. And we'll kind of shift the conversation here in a sec. But last year it was sign a new contract. Team's supposed to be okay. This is the guy. Like this was their big offseason guy. Okay, well now he's 13 points a game and he's really not getting any shots up except for threes, and it doesn't look that good. Now it's like they're gonna stink. He's their best player. All right, well now he just gets 3 more shots a game on 4 more minutes. So like the shots per minute are basically the same. Efficiency does go up a little bit. Kind of a lot of it, a decent amount, but really just the volume goes up. And when you have the ball more, you get fouled more. And when you're allowed to get more shots at the rim, you get fouled. But like, that's just all that happened. The only difference was the team got worse and he kind of stayed the same and had a bigger role. And we all feel differently about it. It's kind of wild how things work out.
And I want to go into something here. We're on a little bit long just for 1 second. Actually, we'll come back on the other side of this. I have one more follow-up on Cam Johnson, and then I'll give Doug a dealer's choice for how we close out the show. We'll do that here in just one moment.
All right, before that, to let you know about our friends over at Skims. You find out Skims is making underwear for men. You got to get intrigued. You get the quality going with friends. You hear about it from friends and family. You got to give it a try. It lives up to the hype. If you got issues with underwear, maybe it's fit, maybe it's comfort, it's just finding the right style. Skims can change all of that. Their men's line offers something for everyone. Boxer briefs, the classic briefs, all designed with the perfect balance of comfort and style. Those are 2 words you want to hear when it comes to your underwear. Try the Skims Boxer Brief. You'll be totally hooked. Designed for an active lifestyle. They move with you. Never lose the shape. Stay in place all day. You're running errands, working out. It's all movement, baby. And Skims is there for you. Shop Skims Men's at skims.com/LockedOnNBA and Skims stores. Let them know they sent you after you place your order. Just select podcast in the survey. Select our show in the drop-down menu that follows. Go to Skims Men's at skims.com/LockedOnNBA.
All right. As we tie a pretty little bow in today's Locked On Nets episode, talking about some Sean Marks comments, obviously Cam Johnson, and then rounding ourselves into just a little bit of a reality check, right? How we perceive something versus what it really was. And what I was going to mention was the trade when he comes over in the 22-23 season from Phoenix in that deal. He plays 25 games and he plays almost 31 minutes and he takes 12 shots per game. So you compare that 25 game sample and then this season, that's where you talk about that jump, right? 16.6 points, 18.8 this season. Some of the numbers like from beyond the arc, 37.2, 39. Like, and the free throw attempts are there as the percentage, and it also went up. So I feel like that's like actually the right spot to couch it in if you're talking about making those comps, even though you have to account for the Phoenix time and otherwise. Would you rather hear, your choice, Doug, about some of the players and their exit comments as they left this season, or some more from Sean Marks when it comes to the CBA and how it impacts the landscape of what the Nets maybe want to do?
Yeah, do the CBA ones, because I find this to be a little bit more interesting in the way that they're thinking about sort of like the landscape of the NBA, because this is the paradigm they have to kind of work under, or the construct they kind of have to work under.
And so, when asked about the new CBA and how it impacts the Nets rebuild, Sean Marks said it's important to have guys under rookie contracts that you control. You drafted them, you developed them. It's difficult when you're trying to acquire max level talent on max contracts. Those days are probably gone of going and getting 2 to 3 max free agents and so forth. The funny thing to pause on that about is, yes, you draft these guys, you develop these guys, and you have them under team control. And then Cam Thomas walks in the door and he goes, so what are we talking about here? Are we getting the contract done, or how do we feel? This is one of those guys that is there. And I also think it's, of course, something we've talked about the CBA before throughout this season. And since it started, that it's going to be hard to just throw really big money at guys to get them from their teams and to get them in the door. Developing the roster, developing young drafted talent is critical, at least at setting a baseline for any decision you want to make down the road.
I mean, of course, we've been saying this forever. Like we said this before they traded Mikal Bridges. We're like, there's 3 ways to acquire players these days. That's it. There's only 3 mechanisms to acquire players. You sign them in free agency.
Oh, no. Sorry.
You sign them in free agency, which is getting increasingly difficult to do for any player that's any good at all and young. So that one's kind of even off the table, like what Sean Marks says. You trade for them. Okay, well, that can be done, but you have to give up usually significant assets to be able to do it. So you're going to lock yourself in place in other ways, or draft them. That's it. There's only 3 ways. And the drafting is the most cost control version of it. And if you're able to draft generational talent at less than market value because you drafted the best guys and you can pay them rookie scale contracts that you don't have to negotiate because the CBA locked that in place, there's like no better deals than this stuff. Now, usually with the NBA, before you reach any point of like real contention, you do have to have signed that guy to a max deal, right? These guys are, it's like their 4th, 5th season. They're already into the max deals. So at that point you are paying them, but you're already kind of planning for that. And you're grinding up other sort of cost controlled talent along the way, because you're usually not that good because you're going through the draft. Like this is the case again for trying to get these draft picks as high as possible so you can have them cross controlled under these circumstances. So not surprising. It's good to hear him say it, I guess, because I think that we're not like, they can't do the KD and Kyrie signing again. That will never happen again. Like that's just never happening. These guys signing, just reaching all the way to free agency and then signing, then no way. These guys sign and then they bitch and leave. Like that's what happens. They get the money and then they ask for a trade. That is the playbook. Yeah. Like you cannot, these guys are not hitting free agency anymore. Most of them aren't.
And it's important why, drafting and developing young talent and then giving them their first big contract, the second one after the rookie deal. It does buy you time. When you look around the league, even the guys that end up moving or changing teams or ultimately get traded, it still buys you more time. It gives your franchise a chance to continue to build around that young talent. Whoever the Nets get in the first round and say, well, we've got some of these pieces here. We got 3 more picks. And then next year we have picks. Be 4 years before your contract's up. And then we're going to throw you a big boatload of money. And that'll buy us a couple more seasons as well, right? So you're over half a decade down the road before maybe your star says, hey, are we doing anything here? And by the way, that onus is on the organization to build a successful team so that your superstar wants the boatloads of money and also wants to stay and play with you. Here's the other one that I want to get to.
Real quick, one last thing about that. It can screw you too. It can screw you because you feel obligated to sign these guys and they can just be like not quite the guy too, right? And so I'm
waiting for the
LaMelo,
era of that a little bit. We haven't seen that. Like the era where
a little bit like LaMelo, Scotty Barnes, like we haven't seen it kind of all the way play out here. And so there are a few guys here that end up becoming the top draft picks. They kind of like look the part and they're going to be like the best version of a guy that city can probably hope to get, right? Charlotte, Toronto, like it's going to be hard in the free agent market or even big trades. They don't want to do it. So, and then you're like, well, now we're just paying this guy the max. Like it can go wrong for you. It's not a guaranteed situation.
Well, no, that was my point. Was like so Scotty Barnes, where you say we're just gonna the day that comes where an NBA team says we're just gonna not give the money to this guy because it's not
it won't happen
to spend it. I know, like it's like impossible to make that call until you start to open up. Where like because
you can't replace it
doing that, and you're trying to figure out the guy that you want on your team in your city as opposed to another team in another city, right?
They won't do that because there's not a mechanism to replace it. It's much better to actually oversign for the player that's not there, and then live with it with it rather than be like, no thanks, because it's like, well, you get nothing, and maybe you try to trade it. Maybe you can try to trade the player a little bit early. But it's still like, it's just not easy. So these are not easy decisions. And I just wanted to highlight that it's just not a perfect situation for the team either. Like you can get locked into these guys when you're like, we kind of got to pay them and it's just not really worth it.
No, 100%. The other thing that I thought was really good, because we talked about this all the time when it came to, especially when things about Giannis came up, going after stars this offseason. When asked about, and this came care of Eric Slater, friend of the show, excellent reporter covering the Brooklyn Nets, about the qualities the Nets are looking for in star acquisition from Sean Marks. If you're going after max level talent, they have to automatically and absolutely change the trajectory of your team. This can't be like, let's go get this guy and lock ourselves into being a 6-7 seed. When we go all in, you're going into compete at the highest level. Like we talked about this a lot throughout the course of this season and about the path going forward. That to me really resonated around the idea of we could go get a star, but if it just means being a mid-tier team in the Eastern Conference, why would we give up all the assets to be that? It needs to be everything or trust building yourself through the draft, with all these draft picks.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of GM 101. And that, again, it's like an easy thing to say. Now you can always later, if you trade for the guy,
you say we think he's gonna make it the 4 seed or 3 seed.
We think he's that kind of guy. So it's like, okay, well, so he didn't say the names. Like you'll notice he didn't say the names of who these guys are. These wasn't like
4 guys that I think only make us a 6 or 7 seed. Just so everyone.
Here's the list: Giannis, Luka, Jokic. Like he's like he didn't say the names.
You know who's not going to get us to the mountaintop? Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, James Harden,
Trae Young. No thanks. Like he's not going to give that list. But it is correct. Like we've seen it time and time again. And maybe this year will be different. Like, I don't know if like the Rockets make it to the finals this year, maybe we'll reevaluate our thought process on like the types of teams that can make it, right? If the Rockets somehow make the finals and you're like, well, they didn't really have a top 5 to 8 player on their team, but they had, 4 top 25 guys or something like that, or what, I'm just making these numbers up, but like maybe we start to evaluate the differences in team building. That has really not been the case up until this point. This is a somewhat interesting year where like, even if the Cavs make it, you're like, okay, well, none of their guys are the top 5 players in the league, top 8 players in the league, probably. Like, how high does Mitchell get? I don't think he gets that high. So it's like, there could be a situation that we look at this year and be like, maybe you don't need one of those guys. Maybe you just need 4 awesome guys, and that is kind of good enough. Again, that has not been the case really up until this point, but I do think this year is open for the chance for it to happen. I don't think it's likely. I think we're going to see Boston and OKC, but if for some reason one of these other teams somehow just got some sick run out, even, I mean, I guess the Knicks would qualify here too. Knicks, I guess the teams that would qualify that maybe have like some chance to do it would be Cleveland, probably. Knicks, I don't think they have a chance to make the finals, but if they did, Pacers, I guess, but I don't think they're going to make the finals. Rockets, for sure, right? Like those teams would, I mean, maybe even the Clippers, like depending on where you think where Harden is, the Clippers have been freaking good. So anyway, I guess this year, more than other years, we could be like, maybe there is another path, but the history is just really not dictated that to be the case.
And by the way, if the Rockets get bounced, they'll be like, that's why you can't do it that way. Like there's a real aversion to, and we talked about this with other sports. I know we're gonna get out of here. We can have this conversation again on another day, but there's a real aversion in basketball because it's only it's five guys, 5 starters, right? Some guys on the bench. It's not like football. Like it's not like these other sports where like the rosters are so deep and you can accumulate a ton of talent. And then the combined total of that matters differently. Like, no, it's kind of the condensed superstars at the top. And if you got one of them and then a couple of extra really good guys, all of a sudden you're having a conversation about making deep playoff runs. So we'll see where this shakes out. Doug started to allude to a lot of the teams he doesn't think is going to make the finals, but we'll give our predictions on these first round playoffs as this week comes in here. When we're recording this before the playing games happen. So we'll find out. I said Orlando goes down. That's an embarrassing way to finish off their season. We'll talk about all those playing games and the playoffs at large next time we see you.
There we go. All right. Make sure you help the show. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Subscribe over on YouTube. Leave a comment. These are very clear directions. This is 1, 2, 3. Subscribe. Leave a comment. That's it. It's 3 things. You can do it. It's very easy. Go do it. That's the number 1 way to help the show.
And to further drill down what we need you to do, BCT was the abbreviation, Adam. I got you, brother. And that is from ill to thrill over on YouTube.
Oh, one of the all-time great poets. We're back in tomorrow talking more Brooklyn Nets basketball.
The only poet that matters. Basketball. Yeah. Ill to thrill.